Okay, so this is a Math 3 Unit 4, Objective 5 lesson. So this is the last lesson of the unit. And so we're going to be looking at applied problems, and we'll be working with solving rational equations. So if you struggled with that on the previous lesson, this will just kind of be a refresher. But the nice thing is that solving these rational equations are a lot simpler. So the steps are exactly the same, but the solving will be a lot easier, and you'll see that. So let's just kind of review. So this is a style that we'll be solving here. So we're just going to kind of review how do we solve these two right here. So let's go ahead and take a look at question number 1. So we want to just solve the rational equation. So what we want to do is we want to look for our lowest common denominator, right, or least common multiple. And so for here, so our denominators that we have are 4 and 3. And then, of course, we have this implied 1. So what we want to do is we see that 4 and 3 have no common factors, so then our lowest common denominator is going to be 4 times 3, and so then that will be 12. And so that's what we want to multiply everything by, is we want to multiply everything through by 12. Okay. So we would have, something like that. And then I'm going to multiply by 12 to both sides of the equation, right? That's what we're doing, is we're multiplying to the entire thing, and we can do that because of that equals. If that equals was not there, we would not be able to do that, right? So we're going to distribute that 12 into everything. So we will have 12 and then x over 4, right? So we're multiplying just to the numerator because that's like 12 over 1. So we would have 12x over 4. Plus, and then again we're going to multiply to the numerator, so that would be 12x over 3. And then we would have equals, and then 12 times 1 over 1, right? So 12 times 1 over 1. And then we want to try to reduce, and some of you reduce as you multiply, which is perfectly fine, right? So when I reduce this, I'll have 12 divided by 4, which is 3x. And then 12 divided by 3, which is 4, so that would be 4x. And then equal to 12 divided by 1, which is 12. Okay. And so then that would give me, add like terms, so 7x is equal to 12. And then, of course, divide both sides by 7. And so then I would have x is equal to 12 over 7. And that would be that problem. Okay. All right, so go ahead and press pause and try number 2 for yourselves and see how you do on that. All right, so then the first thing again I want to do is I want to find my lowest common denominator. So if I look at my denominators here, I have 5 and 2. So my lowest common denominator is just going to be 5 times 2. And that's because there is no common factor, right? So no common factor between 5 and 2, so that would just be 10. So then that means I'm going to multiply everything by 10. And again, I'm allowed to do that because I have that equals. If that equals was not there, I cannot just multiply by 10. Because I'm multiplying the left side of the equation by 10 and the right side of the equation by 10. And then I want to distribute that 10 to the numerators, right? Because that's like having it over 1. So when I do that, that x will turn into 10x. And then still over 5, right? And then plus, and then I'm going to multiply the 10 to the numerator there. So that would be 10. And then x over 2 still, right? So the 10x over 5, 10x over 2, and then finally 10 times 1, which is just 10. And then now I'm going to go ahead and reduce. So 10 divided by 5 is 2, so that would be 2x. 10 divided by 2 is 5, so that would be 5x. And then, of course, I have 10. So combine like terms, so that would be 7x is equal to 10, and then finally divide by 7. And so then my answer would just be x equals 10 over 7. Okay. All right, so that's just to help us with the solving, right? So your homework questions aren't going to have anything like that, but that's just to help us with the solving component when we get to that last step there. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be working with. So we're going to be doing word problems, and I know sometimes that is a little anxiety there for some of you, but because you have this formula here, that makes it that much easier to work with. Okay, so we're going to be using this formula for all of those problems. So let's figure out what each of those variables represent. So T is our total time for 2 people to complete one job. So T is that total time. So that would be how long it takes for two people to complete that one job. And so that's where that one comes from right here. So that one, because we're doing one job always for this level of math. And then A is the time it would take one person to complete that same job, okay? So like, let's say that you need to, vacuum the house. So if you have to vacuum the house and you are assigned that chore by yourself, maybe it takes you 1 hour to vacuum the whole house. And maybe your little brother, if he did it by himself, maybe it would take him 2 hours, okay? So if A is for only one person to complete that same job, okay, and then B would be for a different person to complete that same job, okay? But again, it is a time value for both of you, okay? So again, if you take 1 hour to vacuum the house, but maybe your brother takes 2 hours, so that would be our two different times. But if you work together, so like you take half of the house, he takes half of the house, then, it's going to take less time, right? Because you two are working together, so it would take less time, okay? So that's what each of those are. And then in general, T is what we will be solving for, okay? So in general, we are going to be solving for T, and A and B will be given, okay? So A and B will be given. So again, this is our formula that we really need to make sure that we know how to do, okay? So make sure you know that formula. And remember, T will be our variables, generally speaking, and A and B will be given values that we will have to replace. Okay, so let's take a look at this first problem here. So this is saying that James can mow a lawn in 2 hours. So James mowed his lawn for 2 hours, right? Or James will take 2 hours to mow his lawn. And then Mandy, maybe the sister, can mow the same lawn in 1 hour. So she can mow it in 1 hour. So then make a guess on how long it would take to mow the lawn if they work together. Okay, so I'm going to give you a second here. So just slap down a time. You can't be wrong, right? Because we're just flat out guessing. Okay. So my guess, okay, so I don't know. So I'm going to guess that they're going to take, I don't know, half an hour. That's what my guess is. So how I am guessing is I know that if Mandy did it by herself, it would take her 1 hour. So if she got help, so if James helped her, it should take less time, right? So I go to the person who can do it the fastest, that would be Mandy, so she can do it in 1 hour. So that means if she did it all by herself, it would take her an hour. And then if she got a little help, even if he's slow, it should take her less time, right? And so that's how I came up with my guess was 1/2 hour. So now for part B, it says to write an equation that can find the time T in hours. It would take James and Mandy to mow the lawn together. So again, this is our equation that we're working with. So T is our unknown, right? So we're going to have T over A. And so that would be a given time for one person, right? So one person, so that's James, he can do it in 2 hours, so T over 2. And then Mandy, here's the other time, is 1 hour. So that would be T over 1, and then equal to 1 job. Okay. So again, T is our variable, that's our total time, and the 2 and the 1 are just the hours that Mandy and James take individually to do it by themselves, right? So that is our equation, and then from there we just have to solve that equation. Okay, so when we go to solve that equation, we're going to solve it just like we did those first two examples. So then my common denominator, so let me write this over here, so T over 2 plus T over 1, so that's just T, right? And then is equal to 1. So my common denominator is going to be 2, because that's my only denominator. So then I'm going to multiply everything by 2 to solve that equation. So we're going to multiply everything by 2, and again, I can do that because of that equals there. So right here, again, we're just multiplying to the numerator, so that would be 2T over 2. And then this is like an implied 1, so just multiplying T times 2, so that would be 2T. And then 1 times 2, which is 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and reduce that. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that would be T. And then combine like terms, so that would give me 1T plus 2T, which is 3T. And then finally divide by 3. So the total time it would take them is 2/3 of an hour, right? And make sure you get your units on there, right? So whenever we do word problems, it's important that you get those units on there. Okay, so 2/3 of an hour. And so let's check and make sure our answer kind of makes sense. So my guess was half an hour. It definitely was not right by, you know, I was wrong, but that's okay. That was just a guess. And when we're guessing, it is okay to be wrong. And so, but then I check and I make sure that my answer makes sense. So because Mandy can do it in 1 hour, which is the fastest time, it should be lower than that fastest time, right? And so that's how I would check it, right? So does your answer make sense? You should always check that. So right, and how do I verify that it makes sense? It should always be smaller than the fastest time, right? Because that means that someone is getting help, right? That fast person is getting help, and so it should always be smaller than the fastest time. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the last one here, so number 4. So for this one, it says that Sam can edit a video in 16 minutes, and her brother can edit the same video in 24 minutes, okay? So Sam can do it in 16, the brother can do it in 24. So who's fastest? So Sam is fastest, right? So fastest time. So if Sam is getting help from the brother, right? So if they work on it together, so it should be less than 16 minutes. So for my guess, I just want to guess faster than 16 minutes. So I'm going to say, I don't know, 14. I'm going to go with 14 minutes. And again, it's a guess, so it's okay to be wrong. Okay, so now we want to write our equation. So we're going to use that same formula that we had up here, right? So we're going to use the same formula right here. So t is our variable, and a and b are the individual times. And it doesn't matter which one we put first, right? So it's going to be t over, and then one of the times. So I will use Sam's time because that came first. And then the brother. So the brother's time will go in the second fraction. And for no good reason other than 16 was first, 24 was second, okay? All right, so now I want to find the lowest common denominator in order to solve that equation, right? So that lowest common denominator. And so this one, they actually have common factors. So this will be nice for us then to practice this, right? So our lowest common denominator. So we have 16 times 24. But we always want to divide out, like, you know, common factors so that we're not using that twice, right? So I know these both have a common factor of 4, so I can, like, divide that 4 out. But I'm going to use factor trees so that we can kind of see that. So I have 4 times 4 and 4 times 6. So I don't need 4 to show up twice, right? So I can just, like, kind of cancel out one of those 4s because, you know, I don't need them to come. You know, so if I look at, let me split that. Okay, so like there's a 4 here and there's a 4 here. So I don't need this 4 because I have a 4 over here. So I would not cancel one of these 4s, right? I can only cancel if I have an extra one over here. So then over here I have 2 times 2, right? And then this is 2 times 3. So I already have a 2 over here, so I don't need that 2. All right? So then my last factor here, so 4 is 2 times 2. And so then this, all of this, with this 3, is going to be my lowest common denominator. So that would be my lowest common denominator is 16 times 3, so 48. Okay, so my LCD is 48. Okay, so again, one more time. So 16 is 4 times 4, 24 is 4 times 6. So I already had the 4s here, so I don't need a 4 on this one. Okay. So, but I need both of these because they're on different sides, right? Different sides. And then I broke down the 4 again, so 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. And I have to keep all of those because I'm on the 16 side, so I have to keep all of them. I can only cross off on the 24 side. So because I have a 2 that popped up over here, but already had it here, cross it off, don't need it. Okay. All right. So then I'm going to multiply everything through by 48 over 1. And again, we're only multiplying to the numerators. So then I'm going to have 48t over 16 plus 48t over 24, and then is equal to 48. And then I want to reduce. And if I can't do this in my head, I would be using a calculator right now. So then I'm going to reduce. So 48 divided by 16 is 3. And then 48 divided by 24 is 2. And then add like terms, so that would be 5t. And then divide by 5. So that would be t equals, and then I have 48 over 5, and so because we're dealing with minutes, we should actually kind of, do some long division there to figure that part out, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just do 5 divided by 48 over here. So 5 goes into 48 9 times. And then I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, should we do a decimal? Yeah, I'm going to do a decimal. So I wish I had a calculator right now. I would just divide with my calculator. Okay, but I don't, so I'm going to do this by hand. So then I'm going to put a decimal here, bring down a 0. 5 goes into 30 6 times, and so that would be 30. So then my answer would be 9.6 minutes. And then if you had a calculator, please use it. Okay, and so then my total time for both of them working together would be 9.6 minutes. And so again, my guess was not, fabulous, but it was reasonable, right? So the fastest time was 16 minutes. And so I just make sure that this is less than that, right? And that means at least my answer is reasonable. So the fastest time was 16 minutes and my answer was smaller than that. And then that's it.